Hello learners, I'm Mr. Saul, and today we're going to continue our conversation about light. Now if you remember last time, we talked about how light will always travel in a straight line. This straight line is called a ray, and it'll continue going in that straight line until it hits an object, any kind of object. Once the light traveling in a straight line from its light source hits an object, it will bounce or reflect off of that object. Now, if that object is very smooth and shiny, then we'll be able to see a reflection or a copy of the image where it came from. If, on the other hand, that object is very rough or not as smooth, then the reflection won't be as clear and it will just show us the color that the object is. We'll just be able to see it like normal without a very strong reflection. So it's all about that surface of the object being smooth or rough and bumpy. So if we look here, you'll see that on a smooth surface, this would be something like a mirror or a piece of glass or very still water. The light, the image, the smiley face will shine down and it will bounce, and each bounce will come perfectly off of that smooth surface and we'll be able to see a copy of that image. This is how mirrors work. When I look in the mirror, I can see my face looking back at me because the image is bouncing off and it's a perfectly smooth surface. But if we look at a rough surface, that image, not very much of it is going to show up because only a little bit of that light is actually getting to where we would be able to see it. All those other rays of light are bouncing off in all these different directions because the surface is so rough. So with smooth things, we see a very clear reflection. With rough things, we don't see a clear image of the reflection, but stuff will still be bouncing off. So we could be looking at the ground, we could be looking at a wall. Anything that's not shiny is going to be rough. Things that are shiny will be smooth, and we'll get a clear reflection. I like to think of it like this. If I have a bouncing ball, like I was saying, if I have a ball and I'm on a smooth surface like this road, I can bounce the ball and know exactly where it's going to go down and then come back up. It's going to have a very clear reflection, just like a mirror. Very predictable. But if I come over here onto the rocks where it's rougher and I try to bounce the ball again, it becomes a lot harder to know where the ball is going to go. That's because it's got this rough surface here. And the bounce could go anywhere. Here's another cool way we can look at reflections. Here I have the camera set up on my bird bath. As you can see, the water is pretty still, but if the water starts to move at all, here I'm going to shake it, then that reflection will start to get really wonky and won't look right anymore. But then once the water starts to still again and the surface becomes smooth, the reflection becomes much clearer. However, if the surface of the water becomes rough, that reflection is not as clear anymore. So this is the difference between a smooth surface and a rough surface and how it can create a reflection. Okay friends, the next experiment that I have set up is my blue tank of water here. And this allows us to actually see light very clearly. So I'm going to use some mirrors like this one. And there you can see me behind the camera. Hi everyone. So what we're going to do is we're going to use some of these mirrors, and I'm going to use my flashlight, which allows us to see the way light comes out really well. And I'm going to use my laser, which casts a very straight beam of light. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my light here. And this will let us get a really good look at what those beams of light look like as they come in and bounce around. So here's the laser shining through that water, and when I hit a mirror, we see that very clear, well, pretty clear, we see that very clear reflection happening when the laser hits the mirror. And if I change the angle, if I go up higher, then it'll bounce back up higher. This is just like a ball, remember? If I bounce the ball at an angle away, then it'll move away. If I bring it straight up, then it'll come straight up. So this is a very clear example of how that reflection works, how the light will move in a straight line until it bounces off of something to change direction. Let's look at it with a regular flashlight instead of a laser. Here I have my flashlight in the water. You can see those beams, and then when I shine it on the mirror, you can see that light coming back up away from the mirror. It's a little bit more difficult to see with the flashlight, but there you can see how the light comes down and then shines back up in a reflection from bouncing off the mirror. So what if we take something that is not as smooth as a mirror? Here I have a piece of aluminum foil that I'm putting in. This is some aluminum foil that I wrinkled up and then flattened out. So let's have a look with the laser. If I shine the laser on the aluminum foil, you can see that there isn't a clear bouncing off. The light that's reflecting off of it keeps changing direction as I move the laser. This is because it's not a smooth surface, so we're seeing that reflection go all over the place. Maybe we can see the same thing with the regular flashlight. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, so you see how sometimes it's shiny, sometimes it's not as shiny. That's because we're hitting parts of the aluminum foil that are reflecting the light back at the camera. This is a really great example of how a rough surface is not as good at reflecting light as a smooth surface is. All right, friends, before we go, I want to talk to you real quick about colors. Did you know that some colors are better at reflecting light than other colors? I want you guys to pause and share out what types of colors do you think are better at reflecting colors, and which kinds do you think are worse at reflecting light? I'll give you a hint, my yellow t-shirt. All right, I hope you guys had a really great time learning about how light moves and specifically how reflection works. Remember, it's all about the surface. If it's smooth and shiny, it'll give you a clear reflection. If it's rough and bumpy, you'll still be able to see it, but you won't be able to see your reflection in it. I will catch up with you guys next time when we keep talking about light.